Let's do a movie review. EK's excited. He likes the movie reviews. A lot of people do. That's fine. So I watched Grosse Pointe Blank, 1997 flick. I saw this before I went in the Navy, and I didn't completely get it until I watched it this last time. Now, I kind of got it the first time because I was like, Mini Driver back then, yeah, I would. But her character is just awful. You know what? Today I'm going to use my notes. All right. So here's the premise of the movie. It is a professional hitman played by John Cusack. He goes to his high school reunion, his 10-year high school reunion, on his therapist's orders. And I use orders in quotes because it's just a therapist that he harasses and threatens into treating him. And he goes and talks about his problems, and the doctor, I mean, it's very clever, like low-key comedy with this overarching sense of terror. It's really kind of a brilliant film. All right. And it's interesting because it takes place, Grosse Pointe is a suburb of Detroit. All right. And it's interesting because John Cusack's character and Dan Aykroyd's character in this movie are having a disagreement about a union, which is ironic that this is taking place in Detroit because, I wonder what killed Detroit. The frickin' unions. All right. And John Cusack is conservative enough to say, no, I don't want to be a part of your stupid union. And Dan Aykroyd's pushing the whole unions are the best thing for America kind of thing, even when it comes to hitmen. And I think the irony that it takes place in a suburb of Detroit is pretty poignant. Plus, there's a play on words, point blank. Anyway. So you get really interesting background on his character, like what kind of person becomes a hitman. And it's and you get this brief moment where he sees his mother, and his mother's out of her mind. She's very, very out of it. She's lived in assisted living, and she doesn't even recognize him. You're a handsome devil. What's your name? That she says to him. He reprises that line a couple times in the movie. Pretty good. How did they do that? 3 times they did it. Yeah. They also have one scene which was brilliant. Talks about his father, where he comes up to a grave in the graveyard, pulls out a bottle of J&B, I think it is, and dumps it on the grave, drops the bottle, and walks away. It says so much about a character. When you see his mother, you see his father. Him interacting with his father, I should say. And then his relationship with Minnie Driver's character, who is probably the worst DJ I've ever seen. She, first of all, your radio station has a window leading to this, where you can see the people on the street and the cars on the street, and you're sitting there talking on the radio, interacting with people walking by, like people on the radio know that. All right. They don't know that you see Martin Blank out the window. It's like, why is she saying all this weird cryptic crap? And then he shows up at the radio station to say hi to her, and she puts him on the air. It's like, now we're going to air our personal drama.
Wait, she sees him on the side of the road, and she's talking about him cryptically as if he can hear her on the other side of the glass, too.
Yeah, she doesn't know that the radio's on in his car.
As if they're piping the radio into the streets.
So clearly you like this movie. Okay. And not only is she the worst DJ I've ever seen, she is a child. She is mentally a child. The way her cutesy voices, and she's like, I'll do whatever. I'll go out on a date with you if you give me an airplane. Seriously, that works. And when I was a kid in 1977, when I first watched this movie, I was like, okay, I could deal with Minnie Driver. I was only 20.
Hadn't given it much thought.
But now I'm like, what are you doing messing with this chick, John Cusack? She's a child. Mentally. Anyway. And what I think is really interesting is that everyone asks him what he's been doing in the last 10 years, what he's doing, what his job is, and stuff like that. And he's been honest with them. I'm a contract killer, and everyone thinks he's joking, and they'll joke back with him. Oh, do you have to do postgraduate work for that? Clever little comebacks, and nobody believes the BS he's throwing out. All right. You can even see it when he has that interaction with Mrs. K, one of his teachers, and you can see that scene in the movie where she's like, "Oh yeah, I remember you," and the way he talks and his mannerisms, the way he's kind of just weird and creepy. It's John Cusack after all. you could see how the teacher, like, her acting was excellent because you could see the recognition on her face where she's like, oh, yeah, I remember the affect of you. Yeah. Yeah. You know? And that was a good little scene, says a lot about his character as well. It's a subtle, well done comedy. It's really good. Yeah, I don't want to spoil the ending because he's putting off the contract kill that he's supposed to do when he's in Grosse Pointe or Detroit, and he's been putting it off because he's been going through this this drama, you know. And there's these like people following him, and the competitors and stuff like that, and then people start dying, and then people's like, oh, and then Jeremy Piven's like, oh, I guess you weren't lying. So, I mean, it's just a weird story about weird people that is actually quite hilarious. Yeah. 10 of 13 stars. Grosse Pointe Blank is 10 of 13 stars. I think it could have been funnier, but I wouldn't know how. I would think maybe more scenes with the unhinged rent-a-cop. Mm-hmm. Remember that guy?
Yeah. Because
the scene where Jeremy Piven's showing a house to people, and the rent-a-cop comes up, and he's like, yeah, I was just, checking out. It's my job, to check out, make sure everybody's okay. And he's like, it's like, I show houses here, man. I show houses in this neighborhood. Yeah, but technically at this point, I'm more of a part of this neighborhood than you are at this point. So, I mean, he's real weird about it. And then there's a scene where he comes up and interacts with John Cusack at the actual dance. And he comes up and he's like unhinged and ranting. He comes up right up to him. I don't know why. Like, I think it's just John Cusack's character attracts this. And so he just comes up to him and he goes, did you see those people who are on the National Honor Society have little stars next to their names on the name tag? What does it matter that 10 years ago you're on the National Honor Society? What does it matter? Hey, check this out. And he pulls out a gun. That's a really good scene because,
very accurate to real life scene.
Well, yes. And it's funny because it's kind of you see how normal people are living, the normal people he runs into at his high school reunion. And then there's him and what he does. And then there's that unhinged guy. And it's kind of like, I guess I got some aspects of my life together. It's not everything. And that's the whole point of him holding that baby and realizing it's like, maybe I'm not doing what I should be doing. 10 of 13 stars. I immediately thought of that movie, Mr. Right.
Such a great movie.
That's a pretty good movie. I don't believe that what's her face? Hannah Kendrick can just learn to catch knives thrown at her after a pep talk and a little dancing lesson.
And then giggle about it.
Yeah. That's yeah.
Knife in my head.
Oh, I'm so in love because you threw knives at me. Anyway, it's serious business. Anyway, let's get into the news worth knowing.
Did you skip something?
No. I don't think so.
What was this?
Just that scene where Jeremy Piven realizes, oh, you're not.
I guess I didn't realize that was from the movie.
Yeah. That's the hitman comes.
He realizes, you are a hitman.
Yeah, and his friend gives him the pen.
I get it.
And he kills the guy with the pen, and later he's downstairs getting club soda and putting ice on his face. And he's like, hey, good to see you, man. Thanks for the pen. Because he didn't bring a gun to his high school reunion. He thought it'd be bad form or something like that. I don't know.